The car finally gave out.
You gotta be kidding me.
Jeff hit the dashboard in frustration. It was bad enough that the car had to break down. But at night, in the rain, and in the middle of God knows wherever he was, it was a fitting end to his bad week. The week had seen his wife leave him,
I can't take this anymore!
taking the kids with her. He had been let go from his job
Peterson, you're fired.
and was now forced to go back on the road as a traveling salesman. Now this had happened, and things weren't going to get any better anytime soon. Jeff decided that he might as well try to find a way out of this mess. He considered waiting in his car for another car to come by and help him. But the road wasn't often used though, and that may take hours. So, he decided to first walk down the road to see if there were any other choices. After walking for a half hour in the pounding rain, he finally came across an old house in the woods.
Oh, come on.
Now, he had seen enough horror movies to make him turn back. But the rain alone was enough to override his sense of fear and nervousness. He walked up the winding road to the door. The house looked to be very old and not kept up well, and Jeff wondered if anyone even lived there anymore. He knocked on the door, and to his surprise, it was answered rather quickly. An older man, looked to be in his late 70s, asked him what he wanted. Jeff explained his situation and asked the man if he had a phone or some way to help. The old man said he was weary of travelers, but decided that Jeff looked honest enough and let him use his phone. Jeff thanked him and asked him his name. He said his name was Joseph Palmer and told Jeff the number to the nearest garage. Jeff made his way through to the phone, noticing that the house looked about as old inside as it did on the outside, and was surprised that there was even a phone in this place. He called the garage, but they said there was nothing that they could do until in the morning, and they would meet him at his car at noon. Mr. Palmer offered Jeff the guest room to sleep in for the night. Jeff was a bit weary at spending the night in such a spooky old house, but decided that the walk back in the rain and sleeping in his car couldn't be much more safer than staying in this house. He accepted and was shown to the room. The house was adorned with antique everything. Not a piece of furniture seemed to have been purchased in the last 60 years or more. Mr. Palmer showed him to the room and bidded him a good night. The man was nice, but the whole situation still left Jeff unnerved. He just tried to tell himself that he had watched far too many horror movies as a child. The bedroom had a canopy bed, one old lamp, a single window, and a red carpet. The house was eerily quiet as Jeff laid himself down on the bed. Quiet, except for a creak here and a thump there. By now, Jeff's imagination had him too paranoid to sleep, as he heard Mr. Palmer outside the room walking up and down the hallway. Up he went, and down he went. Then the footsteps stopped, right outside his room. Jeff waited, yet nothing happened. A half hour passed, and yet he heard nothing except for the rain beating outside and the wind howling as the storm blew on. Finally, sleep slowly overcame Jeff, even with his nervousness heightened. Slowly, his eyes closed, though he could almost hear something scratching at his door. Jeff awoke, and the storm had passed, and daylight was shining through the window curtains, happy that all of his nervousness was for nothing. Jeff got out of bed and checked his watch. He had slept in until 11:20 and had to leave quickly before the people at the garage got to his car. Leaving the room, he was greeted by Mr. Palmer. Palmer asked him if he had slept well, and Jeff replied that he had, though he had trouble falling asleep. Palmer laughed and asked if he was afraid of the old house at night in the middle of nowhere. Jeff admitted that maybe he was a bit afraid, but felt silly for it now. He thanked Palmer and said he had to leave quickly to get to his car. He turned to leave. When suddenly something banged him in his head and everything went quite dark. When Jeff came to, he was tied to a chair in the basement. The place reeked of horrible smells. Mr. Palmer walked up to him with a large knife in his hand. Jeff screamed and tried to free himself, but only tired himself out. He looked up in horror at Mr. Palmer and asked him why he was doing this and why now. Palmer answered that last night he would have been nervous, full of fear, and ready for any attack Palmer would do. No, that wasn't the right time. Everyone expects attacks at night. But during the morning, people are more relaxed, and the fear is low, making them blind to any chance of harm. Jeff asked him again, "Why are you doing this? What are you going to do with me?" And said someone like the people from the garage would find out what happened. Mr. Palmer said that mishaps happen on the highway at night, mainly during storms, so hardly anyone would even think twice to why he was gone. If anyone did actually start asking questions, Palmer said he had ways to discourage that kind of activity. As for why he was doing this, Palmer simply said that Jeff need not to worry about that. In fact, he need not to worry about anything anymore.